I am very, very worried about generative AI amplifying fears and polarizing us. In this respect, I think generative AI is even more dangerous than the search, recommendation, and social media engines that have been making decisions about what to show us and what not to show us. When I first took up my professorship several decades ago after my PhD at Berkeley, writing one of the first theses to argue for probabilistic, statistical, and neural network approaches to tackling natural language interpretation, the reason that I decided to apply that brave new world of machine learning to pioneering web translation AIs was to help reduce polarization. Pretty much everything in my life, whether tech, music, policy, public awareness, or what, has been toward reducing polarization between different cultures and subcultures. So when I foresaw nearly a decade ago the dangerous polarizing effects of the same technologies that we helped pioneer in search, recommendation, and social media AIs, I started speaking widely about the issues. What makes it super dangerous is that this polarization and fear-mongering is happening at the same time today that AI is also democratizing weapons of mass destruction. Until now, humanity's managed to survive WMDs only because they've been limited to a handful of highly resourced nation-states. When World War II broke out, we didn't even have the atom bomb, but now we're perilously close to the days when AI is enabling not just arsenals of lethal autonomous weapons, but also criminals, terrorists, rebels, terrorists, even disgruntled individuals who can practically head down to the Walmart or Home Depot and pick up everything they need to 3D print meshed fleets of voice and facial recognition targeted drones armed with anything from projectiles to CRISPR-engineered bioweapons. You know, World War I was triggered by the assassination of a single archduke. Would you take a bet that not a single person is going to push their launch button? It's a terrible bet. And the question is, what would cause someone to push that launch button? Well, loss of hope, overpowering fear, irreconcilable polarization. You know, today, at last, misinformation and information disorders become a public topic of major concern. Lots of folks are talking about fact-checking against falsehoods and detection of bad actors. But what causes me huge concern is that even after Cambridge Analytica and the Social Dilemma and the Facebook papers and ChatGPT, we still don't talk about the critical point, that AIs are not just deciding what we see. They're also deciding what we don't see. Dozens of times a day, whenever you Google something or YouTube or Amazon makes recommendations or you check Instagram or Twitter, AIs are deciding for you not only which 50 items are you going to see today, they're also deciding for you which trillions of items you're not seeing today. We're empowering AIs to decide what to censor from our view, what crucial contents to omit from what you see. Omission of crucial context is very profitable for the companies that operate these AIs, but omission of crucial context is also the single biggest enabler of polarization and fear. Not falsehoods, not bad actors. Whether something's valid or not doesn't depend on who said it. When we reflexively judge something to be invalid just because it came from somewhere or some group we dislike or we think is a bad actor, that's a fallacy. It's a cognitive bias called reactive devaluation. Imagine if someone searched for climate change as a hoax perpetrated by the Chinese. How many of you think the AI should just serve up 50 items proving that climate change is a hoax perpetrated by the Chinese? How many of you think that maybe some of the returned results should be that, oh, climate change might not be a hoax for these and these and these reasons, and by the way, the Chinese were probably the last major power to come to the table and acknowledge that was a big problem? Generative AI is even worse on this. Most people think, yeah, don't just pander to people's lowest common denominator, serve up a healthy balance. But what should that balance be? Should it be 50-50? Should it be 80-20? Is it 10-90? When we have time, let's try that exercise. Nobody will agree, but at least we'll get a bell curve of opinion. Now you think this problem is bad enough with traditional AIs. Generative AI is worse because you know why? Generative AI doesn't even give you lists, clumsy lists of items. It synthesizes them into a neat sentence paragraph. And that triggers another huge cognitive bias called the fluency heuristic, where we assign much greater credibility to something that is presented fluently. But it's still deciding not just which items to show us, it's deciding which things not to show us. There is no easy magic bullet answer to challenges like this, and there are about a dozen crucially existential questions. It's important for us as a society in the AI era to collectively grapple with these trolley problems instead of sweeping them under the rug because they're too uncomfortable to think about. Because only that way can we give our policymakers and tech executives guidelines for what society collectively thinks is an acceptable range of AI behavior in managing information disorder, fear-mongering, and polarization. Successfully tackling every single one of those 10 problems on your slide, Peter, absolutely requires democratic societies not to be operating with censoring AIs, deciding which crucial contexts to omit from us. Thank you.